guys hear me?
Yes, good afternoon.
Yes.
Yes.
Good afternoon.
Okay, well, good afternoon to everyone. Thank you for being here. We have a lot of changes in the contracts today, so I'm going to try to get through as many of them as I can. My name is Barbara Dyer. I'm positioning me so you guys can see me pretty. That's better. Okay. We do have a lot of changes in the contracts, and so what I also want to let you guys know is that if you see me looking away from the screen, it's because I'm looking at two screens. Okay. So I hope that someone is on here that I believe we have Stephen is on here with us to help us to kind of monitor the chat. So the first document, my name is Barbara Dyer. For anyone who doesn't know me, I am a broker associate instructor, a real estate instructor with our Atlanta Classic office located in South Fulton. So I hope that you guys can see this screen. Let me know if you guys see that screen.
Yes.
We can.
Okay, thank you. The first document I'm going to start with is going to be this exclusive seller listing agreement. Okay. Now, we got a lot of changes in all of the forms that we did this year. Sorry, guys, you know I don't do this generally.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning, Barbara. Morning, all.
Good morning. Okay, guys, let's get started here. Okay. I want to explain to you guys also while we're going along as much as I can, the reason why we made certain changes. So again, the first one we're going to start with is going to the exclusive seller listing agreement. Okay, as you see, the first page is going to be down here on the first page, number 7. You guys see where we have changed it from the layer-based paint disclosure. It now has 2 options in it. And also, let me know if I need to enlarge the screen a little bit, just for, I'm gonna do it anyway. Is that too large or is that large enough?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay, so as you see, one of our first changes is to the lead-based paint disclosure, and now you have an option in. Okay. Now, I'm not really going to be going through all of these changes, just in the event that you guys can, just in an effort to kind of speed up what we got to go through today. Hold on, guys, real quick. I'm trying to locate some slides for you.
Okay.
Barbara, this is Shelley. Is it number 7 and number 8? I see they both have some little yellow highlight on them.
It's going to be both.
7 and 8. Okay, thank you.
Okay, now I got my slides, guys. I'm ready for you. Okay, so Okay, so yes, the first change is number 7, the layer-based paint disclosure. As you can see, now you do have an option. As Shelley just also pointed out on the exclusive seller listing agreement here, number 8. No, Shelley, as a matter of fact, that really was, that number 8 was highlighted incorrectly. So number 8 is not a change, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the next page.
So hang on a second, Barbara.
Sure.
So are you saying that we no longer need the additional amendment or document to support lead-based paint?
You do still need it.
Okay.
That's as long as the dwelling was built before 1978.
So this here, correct me if I'm wrong, Deborah, this, Barbara, sorry. This is to, one, enlighten the seller that they do need to disclose lead-based paint if the property is built prior to 1978. And it also kind of helps us remember to get it at the listing so that you're not scrambling for it later.
That's absolutely correct, because now the listing agreement was changed last year, as a matter of fact, and it says that you should collect the lead-based paint disclosure when you're getting your listing agreement signed. If the dwelling was before 1978.
Right.
Okay. Okay. Number 8, Shelley, was a mistake for everyone. Okay, now we're going down here to the further explanations to corresponding paragraphs. Our first change is in B3B, which talks about the images, okay? And this paragraph was really just moved and modified from another paragraph just to break it out. But again, it does talk about the liabilities of us taking pictures and so on and so forth, and where we can share them and so on and so forth. So you already know that if you're using someone else's pictures, you're supposed to get permission to use someone else's pictures, okay? And that is going to be a universal change to several of the forms: the listing agreement, the buyer brokerage agreement, the commercial agreement, the leasing agreement. That's going to be a universal change to all of those agreements, okay? The next change is under 4B. And what we did here was we tried to break out you getting your commission. For instance, this language was added because if you're not a member of the MLS where the property is located and you're writing a contract, you want to make sure that you're also going to get a check. So for instance, if you go down to Savannah to write a contract, well, chances are you're not going to be a member of the Savannah MLS. So you're going to want to get your documents signed by that broker for that property before you show it, so that you will know that you will be getting your commission. The document you would use will be that F258 right here. That's the document you would use. So don't go down to another MLS that you're not a member of, show the property, and think that you're going to get a check. Make sure that you get your check, okay?
Okay.
Here, number 7, it just breaks out the lead-based paint a little more, because it's just, these are the explanations that are all on page 1, okay? So this just talks about where we just made the change to the lead-based paint, but it still references that you still do need it. And as you notice, we put in there the Georgia law that it follows up under, the title that it follows up under.
Does that include sheds?
Well, I would say to protect your, and see why you're A, if it was before 1978. Right? It's a dwelling on the property, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't dwell in a shed.
Well, like where they have these big exterior garages sometimes / sheds or whatever, and they may have been there from day one, or they could have been added later. It's just a thought. It's a possibility.
So, like Shelley just said, you can't dwell in the shed, but
You're right.
it doesn't hurt to over disclose.
Mhm.
Okay, number our next change here to the seller's property disclosure statement, we just moved some of the language around just to kind of shorten that paragraph, because that paragraph had a lot of stuff in it at first before we shortened it. But the main thing we did was we shortened it and separated the lead-based paint out of this paragraph, okay?
Okay.
And I'm just rolling through to show you guys all the changes, okay? And one of the things I want to say up front is you guys be sure to read all of your documents this year, because we might have changed a word, a letter, or a sentence that changes the whole paragraph of that document, okay? So here is our last change in this document. Here is we added the use of initials, which is NA. And that's going to be a universal change in all of our documents as well. We just clarified what NA means. And so this is something else that was also suggested in our meeting. When you're doing your counter offers and so on and so forth, don't use NA if there's no change on the counter offer from the original offer. Use NC for no change. Don't use NA, making it not applicable. Use NC to indicate that there was not a change. Okay, guys?
They should never leave it blank.
You should never leave it blank.
NC.
Okay. The next document, the only change that we made to the exclusive buyer brokerage agreement was we added this same use of initials to the buyer brokerage agreement. That was the only change we made. Okay. The next thing I'm going to use is going to be the purchase and sale. Now, here, what our very first changes is we changed at closing to upon closing. That was giving a lot of people a lot of heartburn, especially when the temporary occupancy agreement, okay? So what we did was here, we just changed at to upon, and we added R to this sentence, okay? And it too was a universal change to a couple of other documents, but that's what we did on this particular change here.
Why?
Just a quick question. What change does that mean semantically then? At, upon, I mean, what did it really change?
Some people felt like at closing wasn't synonymous with the temporary occupancy agreement. It felt like it was not in line with upon the closing and at the closing. So to make it universal, we're going to say up on the closing instead of at the closing.
Okay.
They said the forms committee feels as though, let me tell you what they said. At the closing is an action. Up on the closing is an action.
Okay.
Okay. So up on the closing to correlate with that temporary occupancy agreement. And if we have time, I'm going to go through it as well along with the changes.
Hey, Barbara, this is Phyllis. I'm sorry to interrupt you. Can you enlarge that any more? Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome. And I'm not sure if I say Happy New Year to everybody, but Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Number 3, our closing costs. Here, we just added some more clarification in regards to the seller's contribution at closing. And payoff and proceeds handling and delivery. We just added that just for clarification. And let me say this, when you guys have an issue with these forms and so on and so forth, please feel free to send me an email, okay? Because the majority of these changes come from realtors out in the field. When you guys send us something, we actually look at it and dissect it and see if it's something that's worth us making changes for. So the majority of these changes did come from suggestions from realtors in the field. So here, we just added some additional language for clarification. And the same here under items to be paid by the seller. I'm sorry, items to be paid by the buyer. Just additional clarification. Closing date and the right to extend the closing date. Again, we added some additional language here, and these changes we're making are going to be universal to some of our other forms as well, okay? But here we just added some additional language. Sorry, guys. Additional language for the extension of this closing. So you guys want to read this carefully, okay? Because this is talking about the extension of your closing and the financing contingency if it has expired, what your buyer's rights are.
Mhm.
Here, we're talking about, we added some clarification in here for the closing attorney's responsibility. Because previously, one of the things we always said was the closing attorney represents the lenders. Well, in the cash transaction, who does that attorney represent?
The lender.
The buyer.
The buyer
Cash transaction.
in a
Oh.
cash transaction. Okay. These paragraphs that you see here under inspection and the due diligence are different paragraphs that we separated out because they were all in one big paragraph previously. So we separated these out just for clarification purposes to make it easier to read, and hopefully we hope it doesn't cause any heartburn. These paragraphs as well, all of these paragraphs. Now, when you get down here to repairs, this is additional language that we've added to the contract, unless otherwise agreed to in writing. And there's another one we're going to get to that talks about if the buyer can take in or remove property from the property, okay? If you're under contract.
So Barbara, I have a quick question. When the highlight is the entire, like the entire F, due diligence period, that means that we need to read that entire thing, that entire paragraph, because that's different than what was there before?
With these right here, that are just highlighted is because we had them in different sections.
Oh, okay, okay.
So I'm
sorry, you may have said that and I missed it.
That's okay. I'm just trying to highlight the things that we did absolutely change. And so, for instance, we just separated where it says here, seller's duty to disclose. Basically, what we did was just separate it, and we moved it from one of the previous paragraphs above and just separated it out of the paragraph.
I see. Okay.
And the same thing like with the due diligence period, the lead-based paint hazard, all of those were removed out of another paragraph.
And just put into their own separate paragraph.
Their
Okay,
own separate little subtitle.
All right, thank you.
Here under the brokerage agreement, we did add additional language as well. So read this, look at this, what this says, guys. It says if the same brokerage firm is representing one party as a client and working with the other party as a customer, the broker and all of broker affiliates are representing the client.
What does that mean?
Yeah, a designated agency, right?
That it says one says the client, one says the customer. So what duty do we owe to the customer?
One
Yeah. Fairness, honesty,
Just ministerial acts.
Fair, accurate, and honest. Okay, that's what we owe to the customer, but we owe our full fiduciary responsibility to the client. So what this is saying is that if Keller Williams is representing someone as a client, okay, say that I'm the realtor. I'm representing that person as a client. Say for instance, Shelley is representing someone that is a customer, and we're both under Keller Williams Realty Atlanta Classic. It's saying that all of us under Keller Williams is representing that client that I have as a client.
Oh, wow.
Oh,
So Barbara, hi, you happy New Year. It's Yolanda, I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
So on the same subject, because I actually just did when I do a lot of these, you still the customer as you're representing the buyer as a customer or vice versa, seller as a client. If it's just you on there, it still means that everyone is being represented by Keller Williams, right? It just means the same thing.
No, because
Okay.
you said if you're the only one on there, this is a representation of two realtors in the same company.
Okay.
Representing one as a client and one as a customer.
All right, I get what you're saying, but if I'm asking you that if it's just me doing it, I am still representing the buyer as a customer and the client as, my client fiduciary relationship, and they're just filling out serving the customer.
No, because it sounds like to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, Yolanda, it sounds like to me that you're the only realtor in the transaction.
You are correct.
So if you're the only realtor in the transaction, you can't represent. It's a little hard to do that. So you would put yourself in the position, one is going to be the client, one is going to be the customer. But at the end of the day, Keller Williams is going to represent the client.
Mm-hmm. I got you. So what happens if you've done it? Because I've done a few of them. You're just saying no more, period. Get another realtor on it. Is that what I'm hearing? I just want to understand.
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying
Okay.
you might just need to get your documents assigned, get a document signed, because we do have realtors that represent people in the same transaction. It's called disclosure. You just need to disclose.
Okay. Yeah, cool. Yeah, that's what I've done. All right.
And,
Thank you.
and
Yeah.
to find out
Barbara,
and to find out what your broker's policy is.
Barbara,
Right.
can I interject one thing?
Oh, yes, ma'am.
I think where this comes down to is if we are in a legal situation, then that means the broker, Keller Williams Realty Atlanta Classic, or whatever that broker is representing as a whole the backing. The client is going to be the person that we have that client relationship with. So it does not mean that you still get the same appropriate paperwork if you're the only agent in the deal. And say you have a listing, that listing, by virtue of the listing agreement, they are your client. And if there is an unrepresented or a buyer that does not have an agent representing them, they are a customer. Yet if we are able to get into a legal piece, if the brokerage is involved, whether there's one agent involved or two agents involved by virtue of customer and client, the broker affiliated licensees are representing the client.
Completely
It's just giving clarification. That's all. Nothing else has changed. The paperwork is the same.
Perfect. That's completely understood. Thank you, guys.
Barbara,
Yes, ma'am.
good morning. This is afternoon. I'm sorry. This is Sharon. I just want to make sure I'm just in reference to what Toya just said. Nothing has changed basically in terms of me as a listing agent working with someone who doesn't have representation.
Nothing.
We've always done that customer acknowledgement form. So that doesn't change, correct?
That's correct.
So on the other side, if you came in with a buyer that you've been working with, now you've got to explain to your buyer that they are your customer as opposed to your client. Is that how that works?
No,
I was gonna
that
say,
is,
yeah.
no, that's not how it works.
Okay, so
So I would just want to make sure that you're not getting it confused, Sharon. They would still be your, this is only when there's a situation where one is a customer and one is a client, not when both are clients. Because if there's two agents on the deal and one is a client by virtue of a buyer's brokerage agreement, that makes them a client too.
okay. So the situation where we've got the client and the customer, explain that to me again.
Can we talk about it later? I mean,
Okay.
and I don't want to be rude, Sharon, but we only got
Okay.
like these 30 minutes. And
Okay, that's fine.
But I do see what you're saying, and it probably is a question for a lot of people. So I'm gonna make a note that I don't know if we can get a list of the people that are on the call today. I'm gonna make a note here to make sure that we come back and talk about it again, or send out something to you guys. But just remember, like what Toya just said, everything basically is still the same. But like she said, when we get into legal issues, that's where we have to become real specific.
Okay, I just wanted to just make sure that, you know, if it's two clients under the same brokerage, if that's the correct way or if it's different, but just let me know later. That's fine.
But let me just say this real quick. When you say two clients, you're not talking about two clients in the same transaction. You can't do that.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm referring to, the same transaction. So if I have a listing and you bring a buyer that you have a buyer's brokerage agreement with, that you would.
That's
just
different, Sharon,
standard.
because that's different because then I'm representing my client as a client and you're representing your client as a client.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, well, you answered the question then. Thanks.
Okay, my pleasure. Okay, guys, and I don't mean to be rude, and I'll give everybody my name and telephone number and email address if you guys want to contact me afterwards too, because I know we just only have an hour. Okay, here under the entire agreement, I'm sorry, under other provisions, okay, under the entire agreement here, it references a document. This document talks about a change. Once you go under contract, it really talks about assignments to an agreement that's already under contract. And it says that in order for you to change that assignment, you have to get written permission. And this is the form that you need. This is the stipulation that you need in order to get that permission, which is the SS 611 for all parties to sign. That everybody's in agreement, okay? Here under G, for the Foreign Investment in Real Estate Property Act, we just added more language here because a lot of foreign investors did not realize that if they buy a property in the United States, a lot of times there are additional funds that are held for taxes. And it's usually about 15%. And they did not know that. And it wasn't never in our contract. So we just added that language. So for anybody who's working with foreign investors, keep that in mind. They may have to leave some money on the table for a little while. Survival of the agreement here. Under this paragraph, we just added some additional language here. Some items that do survive the agreement. And here again, we added under definitions, we added NA to clarify. If it's not applicable, please don't leave anything blank, but if it's no change, use NC, please, for no change. Because you don't want to mess around and change something that was in your document that you agreed to and you changed to not applicable when it should have been no change. Okay? I'm going to go to the next document. You guys have any questions on that one? Okay.
Question, Barbara, is this Zoom being recorded?
I'm not even sure.
'Cause I'm
Yes.
Yes, it
taking
is.
pictures. Oh, okay.
Yes.
Perfect.
Okay.
I can stop taking pictures then.
You can, yeah. And also, as a matter of fact, I have a list of all the changes that it's like 6 pages. I'll send you. I'm gonna try to put it in the chat too, so you guys can just download it. That talks about the changes that we did for 2023. Because this is a lot of it's 6 pages of changes. I'm just hitting the ones that I know that we use a lot.
Hey, Barbara, this is
Yeah.
Lisa Migo. I can add it if you want me to.
You have it?
Yep, I can add it in the
That'll
chat.
be great. Okay.
Yep.
Okay, here's the seller's property disclosure statement. And the only thing that we added here was something I just talked about a few minutes ago, was we added some additional language here that talks about property that can be removed or taken from the property and must be with the buyer's consent if you are already under contract. You guys know that down here a little further on this same document, we have a section that says items remaining with the property and they're taking some items, okay? Well, here, we just added language that said, once the seller's property is under contract, the items that may be removed and taken by the seller as reflected in the seller's property disclosure statement may only be amended with the written consent of the buyer. Okay? That's because a lot of times they were going under contract, and once they went under contract, people would go in and remove certain items. That's why when I go and show a property, I write down the maker of that like it's a GE electric stove. I know it's a GE, so when I go back and I see it's something other than the GE, you didn't get permission. Or they go in and take the good refrigerator and take the refrigerator that was in the garage and put it in the house. So now it's saying that they have to get permission. Okay?
I got a question, probably more appropriate for tomorrow's meeting, but my question, if you want to write it down, is, so what if the seller does try to be slick? What recourse would the buyer have? What recourse would the agent have? I know we're not big on suing people as a brokerage firm, so
Those
what if
things-
they do? Then what?
And those things survive the closing. So you can't take them to court because those things do survive the closing. It was in
Take 'em to
writing.
court. Okay.
And like you said, we don't like to do stuff like that, but sometimes that's the only recourse we have. If it's in there and it's agreed to in writing and they do something otherwise, of course, sometimes people don't want to go to court, so they'll try to work it out with you to satisfy everybody.
Yeah.
But that it does survive the closing, so it will be a legal issue. You could take them to court if you so choose to. Now, I'm not exactly sure did that answer your question?
Yeah, partly, but I don't want to stall the progress. So I got another question now that you answered that one. But,
You can always come to me, Lamar. Is that Lamar?
yeah.
Okay. Or put them in the chat. Other people
I
might.
put it in the chat.
Okay. Okay. Now, I'm not exactly sure how many of us use this temporary occupancy agreement. I've used it a couple of times, not often, but it seemed to be giving a lot of people some heartburn last year. So we've done some things with it. Here we just added some additional items that the seller is supposed to provide to the buyer, okay, at closing. Or when they close and the seller's gonna stay there for a little longer. Here, number 8, we just added some additional language too. You guys, let me see. Yeah, okay. One of the things that caused us to change this paragraph, because we realized that sometimes with a temporary occupancy agreement, there were things that were happening to the properties before the new owner got into the property. And I know this won't happen to any of us, but the sellers weren't letting the new seller know, the new owner, they weren't letting them know about the damage to the property. And then the person didn't find out until they got ready to move in, and then here all this damage is that the previous seller just got away with, not taken care of. So we added some additional language in here, okay? Same thing here with number 9, we added some additional language. I'm sorry, it's a new paragraph, and all the other paragraphs were renumbered, which gives the buyers a right to still go in and inspect the property and so on and so forth. Even the seller or the buyer, you give notice to the seller that you would like to go in and inspect the property during certain times. And as you see here, it was Monday through Saturday from 9 to 8 or Sunday from 1 to 6. Of course, they have to call, get permission and so on and so forth. Because when we were making this change, my comment was, I don't want nobody in my house at 8 p.m. in the evening. But I was trying to get them to change it to 6, but as you see, it's from 9 to 8, Monday through Saturday, Sunday, 1 to 6. Of course, they have to call and get permission. Number 11 here, we just added additional language here regarding that holdover rent, with a tenant staying longer than they're supposed to. And in this blank right here, it has been suggested that you put something in here that's going to give that person that's holding over heartburn. like something like $500 a day, $1,000 a day. That's gonna help them get their butt out of there a little faster. If you put something in here like $50 a day, they might stay another 30 days. But if they're paying $500 to $1,000 a day, they're gonna probably try to find them somewhere to live real quick. This is a new paragraph that we've had.
Barbara.
Yes, ma'am.
Hey, this is Brenda.
Hey, Brenda.
Have y'all thought of putting something in here for up where it says repairs, to put maybe a blank where we can put in a dollar amount in the event, you know, some repairs are needed? I always put it in a temporary at the bottom in the stipulations. I always had a attorney to hold like a $2,000, $3,000 over in the
That's a-
event of some repairs needed. So you guys can think about maybe putting something like that in here as well.
That would be great, Brenda. Will you send me an email saying that?
Okay, I will.
Will you promise to do it?
I promise I do it.
Because you don't sound like you feel that good this morning, but
I don't, but I'm gonna do it just for you.
okay, I appreciate it. Because see, that's the stuff that help us to keep these documents, and that's a good suggestion right there. We've already had our first meeting for the year, and we had 100 people on the call. So Brenda, please don't forget to send that to me. That's a very good suggestion. As you can see, number 15, as I said, is a new paragraph that we added. And you guys see what it says? It says you want to make sure with these temporary occupancy agreements that your property is still, you're still going to be insured. You're going to need to check with your agents to make sure that your personal property is going to still be insured. Okay. The only change that we made on the community association disclosure is right here. We added this language: voluntary transition to mandatory homeowner association, because one thing that was discovered is that sometimes they'll start out as a voluntary association, and then it switches over to mandatory in the middle of the, and I would say a good example of that is, for instance, new home construction. With new home construction, they're not usually set up in the very beginning for that mandatory homeowner association. And somewhere between, I'm gonna say 50 and 75 homes, they'll turn it over to the homeowner association. And at that time, they decide whether it's gonna be voluntary or mandatory. So that's the only change we made there.
Hey, Barbara, this is
Yes, ma'am.
Phyllis. What's very common with that mandatory is also your 55 and older properties. Most of them have gone to mandatory HOA.
They have. And most of them generally will. I mean, I don't really know any homeowner associations that are not mandatory.
Right. For real.
So I switched over to this conventional loan exhibit, because I wanted to show you guys some changes that we made that are going to be universal to the conventional loan exhibit, the FHA and the VA. And I'm going to touch on the VA and the FHA too, because they're just a slight bit different. Now, one of the, here's the first change we made with this conventional loan exhibit. This is a new section. As a matter of fact, you see, guys, it says right here, the length of time that they have for their financing contingency period. And you see it's from the binding agreement date.
Okay.
The number 4. Now look what we did, guys. This appraisal paragraph. This is the appraisal paragraph. And it says how many days from that binding agreement date will you be coming back to ask for a sales price reduction?
Barbara,
Can you enlarge again, Barbara?
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. You guys see these 2 paragraphs right here?
Much
Barbara,
better, thank you.
on 4, so what that is saying is, can you explain that, please?
It says that From the time you sign your contract, you have whatever number of days you're gonna put in that blank there will be the number of days that you have to come back and ask for a price reduction in the event your appraisal comes in low.
So they should be two different dates,
Yeah.
2 different days.
Mm-hmm.
Give
Just
me an
like
example.
before. Just like before. Because see, these used to be further down in the document. So I'll give you an example. Number 3, it says the length of the financing contingency period. I normally will put set 21 days in there for
Right.
mine.
Right.
Okay. And so now it's talking about the length of time do I want for my appraisal. I usually make that 25 days.
Mm.
I want the appraisal contingency to be longer than my financing contingent.
I normally put it the same, the 21 days, 21 days. But I see why this here number 4 part is necessary, because before we would have to, if you were working with a buyer, you would have to assume that you would have to ask for a price reduction, get the agreement to reduce the price, all before that appraisal contingency date expired. Now it's the appraisal contingency date can expire, and a few days after that, you still have time to negotiate a change if necessary, is how I'm reading it.
Okay, well, let me
It's
ask
2
you this.
different dates.
I always put mine as 2 different days because I normally know that my buyer is good to purchase before I even start up my truck.
Okay.
What I'm not sure about is that appraisal date, the appraisal amount. So I stress the appraisal amount out as far as I can. Because I know they can purchase going into the transaction. What I don't know is that amount gonna come in at what I wrote the contract for.
Mhm. And you don't know how long it's going to take for the appraiser to get it back.
Generally, so I push it out as far as I can, and I let the other agent come back and renegotiate with me or something. But if they don't really pay attention to it, then I got a longer period for my buyer. But now that we've moved it to the front page, I'm sure more people gonna pay attention to it too.
Okay.
That answer you guys' question?
Yes.
Yeah. Seems like number 4 should be moved down further, like after number 7. But
Well, as a matter of fact, I want to say that it's not. I don't think it's number 7 we took it from. I think we took it further down.
yes,
Yeah,
now
number
here,
13.
yeah,
And
like
number
13.
Well, what
Yeah.
we did, we just try to put the things that really need to be filled in
Mm.
on the first page to get everybody's attention. That's why I said I'm sure people gonna be paying more attention to it now because it's on this first page and not further down in the document.
Mm. Yeah.
Which brings me to our change here for number 7, the financing contingency. See, number 3 came out of this financing contingency, and we just reworded it. So the
Okay.
change, the reword now says buyer shall have a financing period equal to the number of days set forth in number 3 to determine if the buyer has the ability to obtain that loan. Okay. So again, my number 3, I usually put 21 days in number 3, and I usually put 25 days in number 4.
Got it.
Okay. Let me see. Somebody has raised their hand. If you want to go ahead and unmute yourself. Is anybody watching the chat? Is Stephen here? Is
Yes,
anybody?
ma'am, Barbara. Good to see you, first of all. Happy New Year. But I just wanted to say it looks like they've updated the contracts to help us really set the pace for our buyers and help them at every part of the negotiation to save them as much money on their purchase as possible. And a lot of times our buyers are worried about, earnest money and what if that. But now that we can show them that, we have set dates for each integral part of the negotiation, that helps them understand that they're going to be safe, all the way to the closing table, being able to set these dates out like that. So I absolutely love it. And I just learned something new from you, Barbara, on setting those dates you know, maybe 4 or 5 days after the financing for the appraisal contingency. So thank you for that.
You're welcome, my team bold captain. So here on number 7, this is another change, guys. We just added some language for clarification in regards to the denial letters, okay? You got to meet some requirements for this denial letter. Some people could call their agent and say, well, my client changed their mind. Depending on what kind of relationship you have with a loan officer, they might be able to submit a denial letter that suffice for them to get their earnest money back. It might not be so easy now. So you guys see why I say it's very important for you guys to read these contracts this year. All your documents, okay? Here is where someone just suggested that it should probably be moved down further in the comment. I think that was you, Lamar, in regards to that appraisal, where we took it from this paragraph. And the change that we made, we just reworded it, okay? And now it says buyer shall no later than by the end of that time period set forth, come back and ask for if there are any issues with that appraisal. And I'm sorry, guys, I have not looked in the chat, so let me just look real quick. Okay, I'm moving on. I'm not sure if I missed anything. If I did, if you raise your hand, now that I'll see right away, okay? So let me show you what changed. Okay, that was the conventional. Let me show you how it changed a little bit on the FHA. Now, our number 3 just looks just like it did on the conventional financing contingency, okay? Your number of days here for your conventional, for your financing contingency. How many days is it gonna take for them to get approved? Here under number 6 is where we removed the blank and moved it up here to number 3. And again, it still says that financing contingency is equal to the number of days set forth here above in section 3, okay? Now with FHA, we have what that comes into play? That amendatory clause. And because it was giving people heartburn, bold captain, I see your hand, just a minute. And because it was giving them, you know, some lenders and people across the board, all parties involved, because it was giving them heartburn, we've gone in and added some language in regards to the amendatory clause, which states that it shall exist even after the financing contingency has expired.
That is with FHA specifically.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Bo Captain, you had a question?
Please forgive me. I forgot to lower my hand. I was.
Okay, that's fine. So here under number 12 on the FHA, the mandatory clause, we just added some additional language to protect the buyer. If the written statement by the Federal Housing Commissioner or a direct endorser lender sets forth an appraised value of the property that is less than the minimum appraisal value set forth in the amendatory clause, seller may reduce the purchase price to an amount equal to such actual appraised value, and the parties shall still close at such lower price with the appropriate adjustments to the sale price. So basically it's saying that if it comes in lower again, just like it was saying previously, if it comes in lower and they don't want to reduce it, the seller can, the buyer can get their money back. They won't be penalized. Okay? We just added some additional language to make sure, to make it clear. Here, under the repairs required for the FHA, we just added some additional language too to protect the buyer, which states that, and this was in regards to some specific repairs.
FHA required repair.
Mm-hmm. So in the event that the seller has to make some type of repairs to the property, because it's still the seller's property, and the seller decides they don't want to pay for it or whatever, they can terminate it. It's just that the buyer will get the money back. It won't be the buyer won't be penalized.
Hey, Bob, listen, can you say that last part again, that last piece?
That if there are some requirements that need to be made on the FHA,
Yeah, correct. What was that last part?
and that if the seller doesn't make them and decide to terminate, the buyer will get their earnest money back. The buyer won't be penalized. If the seller agreed to make those repairs and then they don't make the repairs and they want to terminate the transaction, the buyer won't be penalized.
Okay. Well, yeah, obviously because the seller defaulted, but what if the seller does not agree to do the repairs and they don't do the repairs? Then does the buyer still can the buyer still back out and get their earnest money back? Does that make sense?
If there are some repairs, Lamar, if I heard you correctly, if there's some repairs that need to be done outside of the contingency, it sounds like the buyer get their earnest money back
I would think so.
under FHA.
Yeah, I would think so.
If the seller has agreed.
Right. And if they sign this offer, then they agreed.
Because there's a dollar amount that we put in there too now. So let me go back. Because there's a dollar amount that we put in that FHA.
Yeah. That's right. That's right. That's
See
right.
right here, number 16. See, there's a dollar amount and it goes on to say completed and paid for by, and I usually say seller, and it says at a cost not to exceed, and I usually put all in there because it's still the seller's property. It's not my buyer's property yet, so I don't want my buyer paying for something that's not theirs yet.
Right.
Barbara, I have one question or observation. These are FHA required repairs, not repairs to be made by the seller's amendment to address concerns. This is what FHA, when they come out and they look at it, these are their repairs that they say have to be made.
For instance, if they come out and say the siding needs to be replaced before we can move forward, and the seller agreed to it, and then they say they not, contract is terminated and buyer get their money back.
There you go. Yep. It doesn't matter whether or not the buyer or the seller submits the termination. It doesn't matter, right? If it's because of this here issue, the buyer still gets their money back, right?
That's correct. Okay, I'm gonna show you guys this VA because we got 5 minutes left. Here with the VA, we did the same thing. We moved the length of the financing contingency period to number 3. It's a new line item. We removed number 3 from number 6, and it basically says the same, that you have the equal amount of days as in number 3 to get your financing period together, your financing together, okay? Now here under VA number 15, we reworded this wood infestation report. Okay. The official Georgia wood infestation report meeting the requirements of Georgia law and dated within 90 days prior to closing, indicating that the property is free of infestation and termites and other wood destroying organisms shall be obtained by and at the sole expense of, it says who's gonna pay for it.
Mm-hmm.
Now here, we reworded this section here. This section here says, any reinspection fee necessitated by seller correcting infestation from termites and or other wood destroying organisms shall be paid by the seller. Up above, you can say who's gonna pay for the termite letter, but here it says if there's repairs that need to be made and there's a fee associated with it, it will be paid for by the seller. And I agree with that, because at the moment, whose house is it still? The sellers.
Mhm.
Okay, that's
Mhm.
it for the FHA. Let's see here. I went through the community association disclosure. Oh, this is one I wanted to bring up, because I know this was one that Phyllis was having heartburn with. I'm not exactly sure how many of you guys used the all cash financing exhibit we had.
Oof.
We changed the language on it. And we removed the all cash sale to the no financing contingency.
Okay.
Even though it does give you the option to still have an all cash sale. Oh, I'm sorry, let me enlarge this. It gives you the option to still have an all cash sale. And so what we did here was retitled this section number 1, because the first title we had was an all cash sale. We just changed it to the method of purchase, because you can still do an all cash purchase, but you could also do a purchase that has financing in it. And be careful if you do one that does have some financing in it, because it goes on to say that it's not going to be subject to a financing contingency.
Like hard money or something, right?
Or if you decide to get a conventional loan or something, well, with your conventional loan, that lender probably gonna have some contingencies. Am I right?
Yeah.
Then if they sign this, those contingencies more than likely won't carry over to this. So whatever contingencies come up will be out for the seller, because it goes on to say it won't be subject to a financing contingency.
Right. So in which case they shouldn't use a conventional exhibit in the first place. They'll use this one.
Because they won't be subject to any financing
Right.
contingencies. So here we just made it clear that what our transactions need to be in US dollars. When I went to Paris, one of the things they could say real good was no US dollars. So in United States, we don't want no euros. We want US dollars, okay? So we just cleared that up and made it real clear. This section number 2C is new. And see, it goes on to say, if you choose option 1B above, which is the finance purchase with no financing contingency, it goes on to say that a loan commitment letter from a mortgage lender is needed. Okay.
I just want to clarify one thing, hard money lenders. Hard money lenders are not considered cash. That is still a loan, just FYI.
And they too could come back and have their own contingency.
Correct.
Okay. So that's 1 o'clock. You guys want to ask me some more questions or things? I mean, because we had let me see, Lisa, did you download those changes?
Yeah, it was a document that I got off of I think FMLS or DocuSign, but it's 6 pages. I think it's the same document you're referring to. And I know someone asked about, I think what you were showing, the actual changes, the language. If you could share that.
As a matter of fact, if I can get into this chat, let me see here.
So there were a lot of documents.
It was a lot of documents. Yeah, as a matter of fact, let me see. How do you attach something in here?
Can you bring that to the sales meeting tomorrow?
I won't be there. As a matter of fact, guys, my daughter had open heart surgery and I'm nursing her back to health.
Barbara, if you email it to the office, yes, we'll email it to everyone.
I was trying to see if I can download it here real quick.
Yeah, you can go to chat.
I'm in chat.
And then there should be like a little paper icon next to the emotion right there, the little happy, little smiling face. If you click that and find it on your computer.
Oh, yeah. Okay, look at me. I'm adding it right now for you guys.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, you guys see it?
Yep.
Okay, because in there are all of the changes line by line for every document. And it even talks about the commercial documents, because I know we have a couple of commercial people on here as well. It also has all the changes in there for the commercial documents as well. There are a couple of documents that we added that are new. Let me see, there was also a document that I want you guys to get. Using that lead-based paint disclosure. There's another document that I want you guys to start making sure that you add to that lead-based paint disclosure. And I'm about to give you that form number. It's a document that we have not been using. And it does state, you know, Georgia law, we should get this document because it is Georgia law. It's lead-based paint F319. That's the form number. Lead-based paint form 319. There are a lot more changes that we did last year. I hope you guys found this to be informative. I hope that it does help you guys. I just tried to hit the highlights for everyone on the documents that we use the most, but we do have 6 pages of documents that we did changes to, 6 pages of changes that we did to the forms, and we're already on our way to making some more changes. So those suggestions that you guys, Brenda and Lamar, please send those to me so that I can take them back to the forms committee.
I got one last question. Barbara, are you going to do a CE class on this? You ever thought about doing that?
I think I have thought about it. I'm thinking about it, and I think it would be really helpful because therefore I can dive down into the documents a little more. I know I was rushed everybody just so I could get through the ones that I felt like we used the most, which is the buyer brokerage agreement, the seller listing agreement, and the purchase and sale agreement, and those conventional FHA, but and VA loan contingencies. But we even made some changes to the USDA, which I'm sure number 3 is one of the changes, your financing contingency period. But yeah, there are a lot of more documents that we've made some changes to. Those leases, anybody who's do leases, property management, we made a lot of changes to those documents as well. I just wasn't able to get through all of them. I thought we just still had time too. And so let me give everybody my information. I'm gonna type it in the chat too, but if you want to just give my information, again, my name is Barbara Dyer. I do sit on the forms committee for GAR. I'm also an instructor, and you can reach me at 404-564-9546. That's my direct office number. My email address, I'm putting it in the chat, is I always spell it because most people think that my N is a M, but it's B as in Barbara, D as in David, Y as in yellow, E as in Edward, R as in Robert, N as in Nancy, I as in India, D as in David, at gmail.com. So don't hesitate to reach out to me. You guys got any questions or concerns, especially with these forms, something starts giving you heartburn, send those things to me, because that's the only way we make changes. We represent all of Georgia, so we have meetings that affect somebody with water rights in one part of the state, somebody with timber rights in another part of the state. So we only know about things that give you guys heartburn when you send us something so we can investigate it and take it a little further.
Thank you, Barbara.
My pleasure. Thank you, guys. I hope you found this to be
Thank you
helpful.
so much.
My pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you guys for being here.
All right.
Thank you, Barbara. See you next time.
Okay.